Double episode day, woohoo! Yeah, I'm behind on a day with this, so double videos today, let's go. Alright, welcome back to SpinoCast, everybody. Thank you for listening, by the way, if you've listened up to this one. This is the second to last solo podcast for our Prehistoric Planet discussion / thoughts little series that we're doing. Today, we're diving into Ice Worlds, and spoiler alert, another absolute banger of an episode. I mean, I'm just, like I said at the end of the last episode, I'm going to be surprised if the last one is, if Forest is a bad episode at this point. Like, all of the entire show, I'm struggling to pick what is my favorite. I really have so little to complain about, if anything to truly complain about in this show. Like, there are some nitpicky things as the episodes are going on here and there that you could find arguments for, but really, all of it is just, a lot of it is subjective too, because there is a lot of, it's just so well done. The show's so well done. Anyway, let's jump into Ice Worlds. This episode kicks off with a gorgeous shot of the Aurora Borealis in the sky, just really setting the tone, which is beautiful. And we start with a Dromaeosaur. And we don't get an actual species or genus name for this one. It's just referred to as a Dromaeosaur. And my thought is that maybe there is some evidence of a Dromaeosaur, as in teeth or footprints or something from this general area that I'm not aware of. And maybe they just don't have a name for it, so they just sort of made up a generic Dromaeosaur to fit in the spot. Kind of like in the Deserts episode where they had the Mongolian Titan that they called it, which is just known from footprints. So we know that there was an animal that lived in this area that was a Dromaeosaurid of this size. We just don't have any actual fossils from it or something. That's what I'm guessing anyway. So this scene was really cool. We see it catching a bug, and then it meets up with some other Dromaeosaurs and are going to attack a Montosaurus herd from the look of it. I'm guessing they're in Montosaurus. But this is one thing I'm noticing a lot of people complaining about on social media today with this episode is the fact that they're not throwing names on a lot of the on a good selection of the creatures, especially the Hadrosaurs. There's only one Hadrosaur they actually have named in this whole episode, and there's quite a few in here. Now, I'm guessing they're in Montosaurus, but the reason why, and I understand people's frustration, because I was too, because I was a bit frustrated, because I know I love hearing the dinosaur names, especially with David Attenborough's legendary voice and everything. But my thought is they chose not to call them in Montosaurus, and this was actually my friend Eric brought this up to me, by the way, so credit to him while we were watching. My thought is that maybe they decided not to refer to them as Edmontosaurus in this episode because maybe at the time of production there was some contention recently between whether Ugrunaluk was valid, which now it's just observed as another species of Edmontosaurus. And I think the show is really focused on trying its best to just stay as up to date as possible for the longest amount of time that it can, which this will get outdated at some point, but I do really appreciate that they are trying their absolute best to not be outdated in any way. So anyway, we got some beautiful cinematography of the icy world here. The Edmontosaurus, which is what I'm guessing they are, they're crossing a little river, and the Dromaeosaurs attack them, cause some chaos. A baby gets washed downstream. It manages to catch back up with its parents, and the Hadrosaurs get on their way. But the one little baby ends up getting washed away in the river amidst the chaos and ends up feeding the Dromaeosaurs at the end of the sequence. And the last shot of the Dromaeosaurs, or one of the last shots anyway, that shows them eating the carcass in the river, shows off, so they're beautiful. They have gorgeous iridescent colors with like some cyanic greens and blues in there that weren't showing up well in the darker sequences in the episode. And I love their tail design with the two long, almost bird of paradise like feathers coming out the end of their tail fans. They look really cool. Anyway, so that's that sequence. Then moving on, we have a surprise species that was never mentioned. It was never mentioned in the advertising or never shown in any of the trailers that I saw, at least, but we have Ornithomimus. Very welcome addition. I didn't know we were going to get any Ornithomimus, well, besides Dinochirus, any smaller Ornithomimids. And these dudes look awesome. They've got really cool colors. I love the red feathers on their wings. The wind blowing through the feathers on the model in some of the scenes was absolutely gorgeous. And I love they've got like a little fancy hairdo on top of their head. They look so cool. Like a little mohawk going on or something. But they're really neat. And this whole scene was showing them building nests for the breeding season or whatever. And one of the males was late to the nesting grounds. So like all of the nesting materials are being used by all the other Ornithomimus. So he ends up being sneaky and stealing materials from the other nests and stuff when the other ones aren't looking. And it turns out one of them ends up catching him doing so, and they get into a mini confrontation. And I also love the interaction too. There is some hadrosaurs walking by, and one of the Ornithomimus goes into threat display mode towards the hadrosaur, and the hadrosaur is just like, yeah, okay, bro, whatever. And I really like that because all other dinosaur media is kind of under the assumption that like, all right, whatever is an herbivore will just get along with any other herbivores, which isn't the case. Like we see today with lots of different animals, herbivores don't always get along with each other just because they don't want to eat each other. So I really like that there's that little interaction there. I thought that was cool. Then after this sequence, let me fast forward a bit here. Oh, yes. All right, I was excited when I saw these guys in the trailer, but this sequence completely blew me away when I saw it. Olorotitan, my favorite hadrosaur species, makes an appearance on screen in a forefront segment focused on it, which is awesome. And this just made me fall in love with it even more. The visuals in this sequence were gorgeous. And even though this episode is called Ice Worlds, these guys are actually traveling to a volcanic landscape to lay their eggs in the ashy sand, which acts as like a natural incubator for them. The babies hatch. The babies are adorable, and they end up hanging out with them and raising them there as they grow. But the warm, stagnant waters are also a breeding pool for mosquitoes, and we get swarms of mosquitoes all over them. Unfortunately, few of the babies don't make it as they're trying to escape from all the mosquitoes, and the visual effects at this scene were absolutely stunning. Just all of the mosquitoes on it looked so on the Olorotitan looked so convincing. And there's one scene too, just like the Quetzalcoatlus episode scene from last episode, where they sped up time and showed horsetails growing, and then the Olorotitan kind of zooming by and mowing them all down, going back and forth, and all the babies running around growing up. It was a really just gorgeous cinematography, and the execution is A++, as always with this show. And then they end up making it out from the mosquitoes up into higher altitudes, and one of the babies that we thought was getting abandoned behind actually ends up making it back with the herd at the end. So it's a nice little sweet ending there. And the ending shots of them on the top of the cliffs is just absolutely gorgeous. It's stunning. Moving on, we move into a forest fire sequence here. And we have a Troodontid, another creature that doesn't have an actual genus name. It's just referred to as a Troodontid. I was expecting them to name drop like Latinivenatrix or Stenonychosaurus or something, where Troodon's material was distributed to both of those genuses, if I'm not mistaken. I know Latinivenatrix is definitely one. I'm 90% sure the other one is Stenonychosaurus. And this scene was really beautiful as well. The fire... I love how this scene, I was expecting it to be like a chaotic sort of stampede scene or something that the raptors were taking advantage, the Troodontids were going to take advantage of on other herbivores. But it was really a more graceful scene from the Troodontid's perspective because it's such an intelligent animal, just sort of meandering through the flames in the forest. There was no sense of real chaos. It was very tactical and confident in what it was doing. You could tell it's done this before. And once again, I have a feeling that they didn't drop the names because, maybe there could have been some changes with Troodon's material that was distributed. So I have a feeling that this animal is meant to be what Troodon's material was, but they're just calling it a Troodontid instead of Troodon. Anyway, I love the design too. The colors are awesome, and I love like the harpy eagle-esque head crest on its head that it can move, which is really cool. It's very expressive. But anyway, this Troodontid shows some really cool behavior that modern day birds have as well, that I have seen before, but my friend Eric was telling us more about it, where some birds will take advantage of forest fires and light like twigs on fire and then drop them near, I think they drop them near like animal burrows and places where other animals are hiding to drive them out of hiding and then catch the prey item that was in there. And this Troodontid does the same exact thing, which I think is really, really cool, that they're doing that behavior. And the one shot we get of it holding like, this is the first mammal I believe we see in this episode as well. And the shot we get of it staring at the camera with like the flickering fire in its eyes from the forest fire as it's holding the little mammal in its jaws is just absolutely beautiful. Yeah, so there's that. And then we move forward to an unexpected reveal. So I was expecting, because we see the trailer for Prehistoric Planet and there are some Moxies in it, which are going to be in the next episode. I was expecting these little nodosaurs to be Struthiosaurus, because we obviously know that we have Hatzegopteryx and Zalmoxes in the show, so we're getting a segment that takes place on Hatzeg Island. And Struthiosaurus was a small nodosaur that was found there, and with the foresty environment, I was like, oh, it's going to fit right in there. But turns out it's actually from the Ice Worlds episode, and these are not even Struthiosaurus, these are Antarctopelta juveniles. My friend Aiden was freaking out because our Antarctopelta is one of his favorite ankylosaurids and nodosaurids. And we didn't get to see an adult, but we do get to see the babies here. Really cool little sequence showing the three of them just meandering around and looking for a den and food and everything. The thing that impressed me most with the visual effects in this part were the dry, dead leaves on the forest floor, just shuffling around their feet. My gosh, just the animation work on that was just absolutely beautiful. But basically the three of them are returning to their den, and the den is only big enough for two of them now, so one of them gets kind of booted out and he has to go off on his own and look for a den. So he's off wandering and he finds a cave with some bioluminescent, I forget what they were. They were something that used light to attract prey that were like clinging to the roof of the cave, but it was like a bioluminescent cave, which was really gorgeous and a nice big one that he found to rest in. And that was the whole sequence. It was really chill, but just really, really pretty and cutesy little sequence with these baby nodosaurs. And one thing my friend Aiden brought up, because he looked into Antarctopelta quite a bit, and it is sort of a point of contention with some people because it's a nodosaur. We don't have the end of its tail in the fossil, so some people are expecting, like most and like all nodosaurs, that it doesn't have a club on its tail, but it actually had fused vertebrae on its tail, which suggests like that it had something really heavy on the end of its tail that it needed extra strong vertebrae to support. So some people depict Antarctopelta with a club on the end of its tail. So it's interesting that they didn't choose to do that, because I do agree with my friend Aiden. It seems like there's a lot more reason to depict it with a club of some sort, and especially since the discovery of Stegoros recently, Stegoros elengasson, which is an ankylosaur. You can see that Stegoros has a really unique, like mace-like, almost bladed club on the end of its tail, and it was a very primitive ankylosaurid. So I think they could have put a club on its tail. It's not something that necessarily bothers me, because it's like we don't have the end of its tail, so we don't know for sure. But I do agree with my friend Aiden that it's like, I think we can safely lean towards believing that it had a club on the end of its tail because of those fused vertebrae. But anyway, really, really pretty sequence there. I really liked this part. And moving on, fast forward. I think there's just one more sequence. Is it just one more? Yes, the Pachyrhinosaurus and the Nenoxaurus sequence, our first ceratopsians in the show. I love the diversity in the visual design for like each of the Pachyrhinosaurus individuals here. They are gorgeous, all different colors and patterns, and even variation in the horns and everything. And the Nenoxaurus are also just so cool. They're not one of my favorite designs, but in the context of this episode, they work so well. They look like big, burly, like almost grizzly bears that are walking around, and they look really ugly and grimy. And they behave almost like a pack of wolves, the way that they don't run in and attack and cause chaos. They almost funnel the herd out gently from the woods onto the open plain, and then the blizzard kicks up and the three Nenoxaurus start surrounding them. And I love that it wasn't like oh, it started and now the hunt's over kind of deal. The Pachyrhinosaurus make like a fortress wall surrounding the babies and younger individuals and everything. And the Nenoxaurus go running in to test the herd, and some of the Pachys run out and, charge at them, mock charge at them and stuff to intimidate them. And I love how he's like, just like in nature today, he's like, sometimes these hunts can last for hours until they exhaust one or more of the individuals. And I love that when he said that, I think it was in close proximity to when he said that, one of the Nenoxaurus actually lays down in the snow and is just chilling, watching the Pachyrhinosaurus herd. I thought that was really cool. And it goes on, and eventually the Pachyrhinosaurus herd runs again, and one of the elderly individuals ends up getting lagging behind when they're running, and the Nenoxaurus surround him, and it's just once again awesome music, awesome cinematography. The overhead shots are so Planet Earth. I love those, and just seeing like this final stand between this Pachyrhinosaurus and the three Nenox is so cool. And then the Nenoxaurus all rush in and they swarm the Pachy and take it all down. But with this final shot, this is the one only true complaint that I have with this show so far. It's nothing like... It's kind of immersion breaking for me, I have to say, because I've been very immersed. And this was the first thing in the show that really just, when it happened, myself and my friends were like, oh, kind of brought out of it and noticing that it was distracting to an extent. And that was the fact of how fast the Nenoxaurus took down the Pachyrhinosaurus. I feel like they ran in and just kind of barely touched it and it was dead. There wasn't much of a struggle on the Pachy's part, and even though that thing is elderly, it was still healthy enough to keep up with the herd to an extent, and it was healthy enough to stand its ground there. So I feel like that thing would have put up more of a fight. Instead, it just kind of gave up and died, and they started eating it. I think it would have been more impactful if the Nanox swarmed it and started, like, I know this is morbid, but started eating it alive, kind of like a hyena pack does to some animals out in Africa and such today. But yeah, it's nothing that bothers me too much, but that is the one thing in this entire show so far that has stuck out to me where I'm like, that could have been better. It could have been a lot worse, don't get me wrong, could have been a lot worse, but it could have been better. Yeah. And that's the entire episode right there. We have one more episode left, and I love this show so much, man. I love this show so much. It is just a dream come true. One thing I forgot to mention too is I love that the Pachyrhinosaurs have goat eyes with the horizontal pupils. I thought that was really cool. This show is just gorgeous, and the snow effects and everything in this episode were stellar. And I cannot wait for the forests episode. This one has potential to be my favorite because of all of the awesome stuff that I know that we're getting. We're getting Zalmoxes, my beloved, Hatzegopteryx. We're getting Carnotaurus. We're getting Triceratops, which it looks to be a great sequence. We're getting so many cool things here, which I'm really hyped for. And also, the Chiansaurus and Corythoraptor hunt, which is one of my favorite scenes from the trailers. Yeah, I'm so hyped over this, and yeah, if you listened all the way through to this part, leave a comment down below. Let's see, what will the code word be for this episode? What will it be? What will it be? Think, David. Increase your runtime. Yes, we just passed 20 minutes. Good. Increase the runtime. Why don't you leave a comment down below saying, I can't think of, normally there's one distinct thing that stands out to me in these episodes, and I think I'm realizing that this one doesn't. Why don't you say this Troodontid is on fire? It's random. That's all I can think of, but it's distinct enough so I know that you made it to this point. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll catch you all tomorrow with the final installment of Prehistoric Planet. All right, guys, have a good evening, and yes, I'm sad. One more episode to go, but I'm so excited. Bye-bye.